perusal of the cable networks shows that they are still occupied with this whole question of, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? So I'm going to stick with the audio sound bites on this because the Democrats are over a barrel on this. Let's go to Fox News Sunday. It's audio soundbite number 8. David Axelrod, he wouldn't say. He wouldn't answer the question. Chris Wallace said, David, can you honestly say the average American's better off today than 4 years ago?
Here's what I can say, Chris. I can say that we're in a better position than we were 4 years ago in our economy, in the sense that when this president took office, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. The quarter before he took office was the worst quarter that this country has had economically since the Great Depression. And we are in a different place. 29 straight months of job growth, 4.5 million private sector jobs. Are we where we need to be? No.
These people really are delusional, and they think everybody's morons. And that 800,000 jobs lost in the fourth quarter of 2008, most of that was after Obama was elected and everybody knew what the hell was coming. That's when unemployment started skyrocketing, was after he was elected, after he won the election. So Wallace then ticks off all the ways we're not better off to Axelrod. He said, you keep talking about Romney. I want to talk about the Obama record. And I want to put statistics up on the screen. Unemployment was 7.8%. It's now 8.3%. Median household income, almost 55,000, now 51, less than that. Gas, $1.85 a gallon, now it's 3.78, almost doubled. National debt, 10.6 trillion, may go past 16 trillion this week. So just looking at the president's record and those stats, David, is the average American better off than 4 years ago?
Chris, as I said to you before, I think the average American recognizes that it took years to create the crisis that erupted in 2008 and peaked in January of 2009, and it's going to take some time to work through it.
The average American sees nothing of the sort. The average American says, this is not how this country works. This is not how we get out of trouble. We don't make excuses for what happened 4 or 5 years ago. We do something about it. And this bunch is doing things that are making it worse. On ABC's This Week, George Stephanopoulos talked to David Fluff. This is the guy, by the way, who picked Charlotte. David Fluff is the guy who picked Charlotte for the convention site because they need North Carolina and they thought it would help. It turns out it isn't helping. Stephanopoulos says, can the president argue that Americans are better off today than they were 4 years ago?
Listen, George, I think the American people understand that we got into a terrible economic situation, a recession, only that the Great Depression is the only thing the country's ever seen like it. So they know we had a deep hole. It took us a long time to get into that hole. It's going to take us a long time to get out of it.
Well, what is this? Took us a long time to get into the hole. We were fine in 2007. The thing that blew up was the subprime mortgage crisis brought to us by Democrats and the government. There wasn't a long build-up to this. Well, take that back. There was a long build-up to it. The subprime mortgage crisis started in 1999, making loans to people who can't pay it back. It did take a while for that to finally bubble up and show that there was nothing there. But that's what it was. It wasn't Bush. It wasn't Bush economic policies. Gosh, these people tick me off. I cannot tell you how these people tick me off. So their excuse now is, well, it took a long time for this mess, and it just happened to coincide when our wonderful president was elected. That's a bunch of crap, folks. He has exacerbated what was wrong, and he epitomizes what was wrong in all those years that led up to this. So they continue talking about it. Stephanopoulos essentially asks him 3 times about this.
Yes or no, are Americans better off today than they were 4 years ago?
Listen, George, they did a good job of reciting all the statistics everyone's familiar with. I think everybody understands we were this close to a Great Depression because of the leadership of this president. We staved that off. We're beginning to recover. We have a lot more work to do. We need to grow jobs more quickly. We need to grow middle-class incomes more quickly.
Stephanopoulos again.
So it sounds like, you know, a year ago the president told me, I don't think Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago. You still can't say yes.
We've made a lot of progress from the depths of the recession. We have a lot more work to do. And that's the question we're going to lay out for the American people is the Romney path would be the wrong path for the middle class, the wrong path for this country. We've got to continue to recover not just from the recession, but again, how do we build an economy from the middle out? So that we have an economy, tax policy, all centered on how do we make the middle class more secure in this country.
I mean, the bottom line is this. You know, you guys pluff Axelrod. You can talk all you want about what led up to this, but the bottom line is this. We are having the worst recovery in the history of the country. Now, we've had recessions, and this recession is no different than any other recession. What's different is this recovery, and that's you guys. You guys are pathetic. Am I ticking off the independents? Should I dial this back, Mr. Snerdley? Am I sending the independents running? Well, you know, I just get ticked off about this. Oh, they want these bunch of crybabies. Look what we inherit. You know, real leaders inherit problems. And the measure of a leader is what you do moving forward. You guys have sat there and you've done nothing. This is the worst recovery in the history of the country. And there's no excuse for it. There is simply no excuse for this other than you guys are dead wrong. Philosophically, economically. That's the only measure that we ought to be talking about here, is this recovery. And it's pathetic. It is embarrassing. This is a third world dictatorship, tin horn type recovery. This is embarrassing. You can talk all you want. You can lie to yourselves and the rest of us, and you can cry and whine and moan about Bush and whatever the hell you think led to this. But people are measuring your leadership by virtue of this recovery, and you are failing big time. There isn't a worse recovery that anybody can point to. This is the worst recovery since the Great Depression. And that recovery was exacerbated by another Democrat, FDR. And that's the only measure the American voter is going to be looking at. The American voter is not going to go. The American voter is going to go in the voting booth and they're going to ask, are the people running the show competent to get us out of the mess? They're not going to go in there blaming the mess on somebody and voting for who they think's responsible. That was 4 years ago. They're going to be voting on leadership and who's better qualified to get this fixed. There might be some stragglers who can't get past the fact Obama's first black president. Poor guy. Can't vote against him because of that. That's not fair. Blah. Maybe some of that. These people are not growing the middle class at all. Pluff and these guys want to talk about the middle class. They're not growing it at all. How can they grow it more quickly when it isn't growing? Median family income is down $5,000 in 4 years. There is no growth. And if there's no growth, how can you grow it more quickly? Median income has gone down. That is the middle class. 55 to 50 is the middle class. And once again, incomes for all income levels declined more during this recovery than during the recession. These guys haven't got anything to stand. They're in quicksand. The only thing they're growing is government and government dependence. That's it. Latest food stamp numbers show it. What are we supposed to believe? Obama's lying flax here or our own lying eyes? No, these people tick me off. I don't. If this is too strident for the independents, I'm sorry. I'm simply passionate about the country. This is unacceptable. To find median income, wealth creation plummeting like this in this country when it isn't necessary. There's no reason this has to happen. But to some people, It does have to happen. Some people think this country's had an unfair advantage since the beginning of time, since its founding. Some people think this country has unfairly, unjustly come by all of its wealth. It's time that we found out what the rest of the world has to live like. And meanwhile, Obama's out playing golf 104 times, shooting pool, playing, going bowling and this kind of stuff, and bragging, apparently, about how better he is at that stuff than anybody else. Right there it was in the New York Times. Be right back, folks.
No.